Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brian Tann, and this is another edition of Tann Talks. All right, what's going on, everybody? This is another edition of Tann Talks. I'm your host, Brian Tann, and of course, my lovely co-host, as we're talking about The Last of Us, Melinda D. Melinda, how are you? On 4 hours of sleep out there serving that community.
Yep.
Serving that community. Look at
I
you.
got a whole brewed pot of coffee, and you know what? I'm gonna shout out my son, the real star, because I got woken up at 10:30 with the goddamn smoke detector beeping about a low battery, and he went up there and fixed it, and then said, "Mom, go back to bed."
Nice.
So
All right.
I'm
So
giving him
so
props.
he's sucking up to get a guest spot. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's what it is. But he's like, "Mom, I'm tired of asking you. I'm telling you," and I was like, "All right, Joel, leave me alone."
And you got your Joel shirt. You got your
I
Joel
do.
on.
I
I
got my
got
Joel
you.
shirt. I have my apocalypse shirt. Rick had one. Joel had one. I'm good.
Now
I'll
you
survive.
got one. Okay. All right. So this week's episode of The Last of Us, titled "Look for the Light." This is the season finale. Now, there's still a lot of heavy-handed stuff going on in this episode. Ellie is still dealing with the trauma of the attempted sexual assault on her person, but also Joel shares something about himself that has only been looked around. It involves his scar. Trigger warning for those that this may affect. I'm right now putting the suicide prevention hotline. You can call 988 or go to 988lifeline.org if you are feeling in that dark place. We all go there at times. It's absolutely understood. But if you're really, really in it, really, really thick, and you feel like you're going to take that step, please, please, please reach out and get some help. There are plenty of people that love you and will truly miss you, and you never know whose life you touch in a special way, even if you don't feel like you're doing so. So why do we bring this up? Well, in this episode, when Ellie asks him again about in our previously on The Last of Us, as we get that season recap, Ellie points out the his scar a few times, and that's really pointed out to us a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out, and I kind of want to just start with that as well, because it was a very, very important bit of character building. Because in this episode, Joel is different than we've seen him. He is so much more attentive. He
And they
doesn't
did a
have
good job of that in that season recap. Like you saw that progression over the 30 seconds of the, you're just cargo to,
baby girl, I've got you.
your girl. Yep.
Yeah. And then we get to this point where he's just trying to get her to talk and to
Mhm.
be present.
She's
And
very
for,
dissociated. Doesn't
yeah,
hear anyone talking to her.
yep. And I'll tell you what, when you've been victimized with sexual assault, that happens.
Yep.
You just sort of the whole world just sort of fades into the background.
Yep. The body's
And
there, but the brain is not.
right, because you kind of go into that safe place. Your mind just naturally goes, and we all have that safe place in our minds that we go to. It's just that when you suffer a traumatic event like that, it gets just easier to go into. It's like jacking into the matrix. It just, the more and more you do it, the easier it gets. And so, Joel is trying to talk to her, and he's just trying to keep her talking, even to the point where he's trying to get her to tell him the bad puns.
I'm in the mood for
Which,
some really bad puns. And she doesn't
yeah,
have a phone book, so she's got to remember them.
right. But what's funny is that when she would first read the puns, at first it was just this constant annoyance. And then it was something that he begrudgingly accepted. And now he's realizing, because Ellie has lost that last bit of innocence. Now, thank God the pervert didn't succeed. Thank God. But it's the fact that he tried. And
Yeah.
sometimes the attempt is the worst part. Just the fact that someone saw you in that light to do that. So, yeah, he's just trying to get her to be herself again.
Yep.
And when she first asked him about the scar, he said a guy shot at him. She goes, "Did you shoot back?" "Yeah." "Did you get him?" "No, I missed." "Oh, you must have been a shitty shot."
Yeah.
Which was real cute to hear. And then, he told her it wasn't just some guy. It was me. It was after Sarah. And this is the first time he's actually spoken about Sarah
Mm-hmm.
to her. And, he said she had been gone. I saw no point. The cat and the dog are trying to fight around my leg, and someone got my leg. I might be infected with cat cordyceps. Who knows?
Oh.
So if I start to slur my speech or start to get really angry, well, you can't put me down. So I guess I'll be patient zero. Yay. So, huh?
It was nice knowing you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So now I definitely want to get to the very, very beginning, but I definitely want to go into this aspect of Joel, where I think this characterization of Joel was very important. Well, hold on one sec, because I thought that I thought this was supposed to be the season finale, but I just saw something that said 10 episodes were written by someone else, but no, we got 9 episodes. It's 9 episodes.
And it was the shortest.
It was a very short episode this time
We
around.
got to the end, and I'm like, that didn't feel like 43 minutes.
It really didn't. But that just sort of goes to show what The Last of Us has done for its entire first season. It's really sort of changed how we've seen not just television, but video game adaptation and storytelling. So this is the insanity that is my life. This is like seriously, the cat's already hidden, and the dog is just. Oh no, that's Delphine. The dude is under the table that's right in front of me, and Odette is just like, I just felt like running. Said,
Zoomies.
Oh, she is zooming like crazy. She is zooming. I think it's because her internal clock says it's spring. We should be outside walking, and it's like, yeah, well, the weather is going to kind of disagree with you there. So at this point, Joel finally comes clean and tells her that after Sarah was murdered, he just saw no point in life anymore. He put the gun to his head, and at the last second, he flinched. And that's why he was in the military hospital setup.
Yeah.
And, and that was all a part of, wow, these military guys, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, this is a military hospital, blah, blah, blah. And I love how Ellie goes, for the record, I'm glad you're here. Yeah. And he's like, me too. And that is probably it's also sort of one of the more heartbreaking moments as well, but it's a wonderful moment because, again, I knew what was coming.
Well, see, that moment got me, but it was the next line that got me really well. And she's like, let me guess, time heals all wounds. And he said it wasn't time. And I was like, oh my God. And that's when,
yeah, I felt some tears. I felt some tears falling.
That line right there, it wasn't time. Because he's right.
Yeah, because you
does not heal all wounds. It makes them
really
fade.
Doesn't. Yeah.
It doesn't heal them, but people do.
Yeah. When you have someone come into your life that is just special and they really make you, I don't want to say make you want to heal, but for lack of a better term, like there are certain times where we survive things and we just exist. But sometimes sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's external.
Yep.
But when it comes to something like that, you kind of have to want to heal yourself. Sometimes it's good for us to just exist so we can process. And it's in the processing that we're able to heal. Sometimes we process and it takes forever. There is no time clock on processing. And the only thing, come on, Tess, for someone that he cared about, he still wasn't healing. it took this girl who was cargo for him to finally want to heal.
Well, you need it. Sometimes you need an external motivator because the internal one's not working, or you
Yeah,
can't find one, or you don't want to find one, and so you need that external factor to then be able to start to look internal.
right, exactly. And I'll tell you what, I'm really glad that we got the scene with the giraffe.
Yes.
So we could finally see, and I think this is probably going to be the last time we see that part of Ellie.
Was
I
anybody else
really
in Jurassic Park and the Brachiosaurus?
I did have that moment. I did have that. You know what? I was looking at it, I said, it's too bad this thing is CGI. Cause
I mean, it was an awesome scene, but I'm like, there's a dinosaur in there somewhere.
I kind of heard, yeah, I did kind of hear the original Jurassic Park theme
Yeah.
when, but it was so beautiful to hear her laughing like the sweet kid that she used to be. And I love how we also got the her telling Joel about Riley.
Yes.
He opened up to Ellie. Ellie finally opened up to him.
Yes.
And she even said, first person I killed was my best friend Riley. We both got bit. She turned, I didn't.
Yeah. We're gonna lose our minds together, and then she did, and I did not.
Yeah.
Because I remember we talked about that after that episode. Like, I wonder what happened. Was Ellie there, or did she just kind of leave Riley behind? And now we know.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, this episode,
At its core, this show is not about the infected. It's not even about
it's not.
surviving the apocalypse. It's really not. It is
It's about
about,
these two people healing together.
yes, but I'd argue it's bigger than that. I would
Okay.
argue that this show and I can't speak to the game, right? I assume it's the same because I know they kept a lot of them shot for shot the same.
Mm-hmm.
This show is really about love and what that looks like in all of its iterations, whether it's romantic or platonic or starts as survival and becomes a more paternal, parent child love. I think, Marlene, and then we see at the beginning with at the
Anna,
very beginning of this
Ellie.
episode with Anna, and I think I would argue very strongly that this everything else is just background. Like it
Yeah.
builds, but the story this is trying to tell is what love looks like in all of its forms and the power that contains.
Yeah. Absolutely. And let's talk. I'm glad that you brought up Anna. First of all, shout out, man. Ashley Johnson, she
So
kills
good.
it in everything she does. And it really upsets me that she doesn't have a bigger role in Hollywood right now. But maybe that's a good thing because it makes us appreciate her more.
Yeah,
But
she killed
now,
it.
now Ashley Johnson, of course, is the original voice of Ellie. And for those that don't know, Ashley Johnson has had a career spanning over 30 years. She got her start in Growing Pains. She played Chrissy Seaver in Growing Pains, the youngest child. And of course, Growing Pains, for those who don't remember, that's the show with Kirk Cameron, who, and like that was the show that made him a teen heartthrob in the 80s before he went nuts. And they brought in Chrissy because he was now an adult actor who it wasn't cute for him to be going into the same teen hijinks anymore.
Yeah.
And all of the other characters, the kid characters in the show were growing up. So it's a common sitcom trope to bring in another cute kid to keep people watching. And that
Yeah.
was Ashley Johnson. And she was really a cute kid. And fast forward a bit in her career, she was also in the MCU. She was a waitress in the original Avengers film.
And that's the first time I
And
was seeing her is when you told me that. I'm like, oh yeah, that was her.
yeah, well, the thing is, the main scene that she was in with Captain America was cut, but she was still in the Battle of New York, and then they interviewed her.
Yes.
And I think them cutting her scene really takes away from the importance of her character. But so we see Anna running through the woods, looking over her shoulder, trying to get to a house, and you can tell that she's pregnant. And I'll tell you what, man, the way they portray pregnant women on TV. I mean, now I've never been a pregnant woman. I cannot identify to that, but I can imagine that you got to be a badass to be sprinting while going through labor
Yeah,
because
it ain't
she
gonna
was
work.
running her ass off.
And she was in like active labor too, so it wasn't even. She was like, "Oh, this is not comfortable."
Nah, she was like, "Oh damn." I mean, that was just insane. But she runs, gets into the house, locks the door because nobody's there.
Yeah, she's calling
And
for Marlene.
yeah, she's calling out for Marlene. We find out that she's trying to get to Marlene because this is where they're supposed to meet. She goes into an empty room, puts the door under the doorknob, which you would think would make it safe. Well, not from this infected.
I
And
wonder
you
if it's
know this was
on
insane.
the makeup, on the infected. This one was good. Like
This was
they probably
really
been infected
good.
all of them, but just the little sprouts coming all off the face, and we see the tendrils again. Oh,
Yeah,
so good.
this was really good. And the one thing that really gets me about with the infected is that they are very sneaky ass biters. Like
Yes.
they bite folks so quick. Like I would never wear short sleeves if I were going to be out with the infected.
And honestly, I'm wondering if they don't have some kind of like anesthetic in their mouth because this is not the first time. I think everybody we have seen that gets bit, none of them. I don't know if you've ever been bit by a human or a dog or whatever.
That shit hurts.
That shit hurts.
It
And
hurts as soon as you get it.
yes, and we've had as soon as you break the skin, even if you don't. I mean, I used to work with kids in a daycare, and they didn't always break the skin when they would bite each other and the little guys. But
That shit
yeah,
still hurt.
they would scream. And then none of these, nobody who gets bit, not Riley, Ellie, Anna, none of
Tess.
them.
Yeah, no
Tess,
one. They
nobody.
had to look and see
Yes. So I'm wondering if there's not some kind of like anesthetic property
in their saliva. That
in
would
their
make a lot of
saliva that makes
sense.
it a little bit more insidious.
That would make a lot of sense. That would make a ton of sense. Now, the one thing that irked me, what was crazy to me, is that she's fighting this thing off, and then you realize that she has pushed a whole ass baby.
I have never been more jealous of a TV character in my life. I had two long ass labors, and she popped that kid out with no problem.
Yeah, they definitely make they really make having a baby look so easy
So if
on
we have any
TV.
pregnant moms out there listening, that's
Well,
don't even think
yeah,
that's what.
don't think it's gonna be all that easy, yo,
Nope,
because it ain't. It
definitely
is
not.
not. So sorry, I just noticed that my study sheet was like messed up. I was like, ah, crap. Anywho, so I almost call bullshit when so she gets bitten, she ties off, she does what she's supposed to do. And after she kills the infected, she ties off the umbilical cord, cuts it, and then Mark
The mental wherewithal to do that. I was like,
right.
he is hardcore because I
Dude,
mean,
women in a post-apocalyptic future are freaking monsters, man. They're
yep.
badass. Like honestly, I honestly, as much as I think that I like to think that I would survive an apocalypse like this for at least past like the first month or so, let's be real, most of us ain't gonna make it past the first day. As badass as we think we are, it just ain't gonna happen.
No.
I'm probably gonna be among the first ones to go.
Well, what did you
Probably.
learn? Preppers survived. We had Bill. Bill lives.
Yeah, that's true.
Bill survived, and then
Well, I figure what I'll do is I'll just lock my door and just let everyone run around and act stupid. I'll stay in my
there you go.
house.
Come out after a week and be like, "All right, what's up, y'all?"
Yeah. Oh wow. And if someone comes to my house and starts knocking on the door, hey, my ring ain't working. I don't even know you there. I'm upstairs in the attic, making sure don't nobody get in here.
We
And
need to
that's
get you
probably
one of those mats. There's nothing in this house worth dying over.
yeah. Well, I just don't want to come. Me and Texas just aren't going to agree with each other. I don't think. So,
Texas will survive. You can come and hang out with us.
all right, I'll come to Texas once the apocalypse hits. That's when I'll come to Texas.
There you go.
That feels good to me.
I'm here for it.
So cool. So Marlene and the Fireflies show up, and she's holding Ellie. And Ellie, even as an infant, you're seeing those little bits of her, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, you know how just certain babies, you can
Yeah,
just
huh?
tell they gonna have that dog in them. And Ellie
Yes.
is not a wimpy baby.
Even Anna is like, you tell him. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, but we sort of get an idea of what kind of made Ellie immune. Because I'm sorry, even though she says that she got bit after she gave birth, I don't know, man. That looked like a photo finish to me.
All right. So at the end, when they're
Yeah.
talking with Neil and Craig and Bella and all of them, they actually show them shooting that shot.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I could figure out that Anna was a liar.
She
Because it was
was a liar. She did lie.
originally I thought it was the umbilical cord, right? Because I'm like, all right, she definitely stabbed that
Yeah, you
that infected
stabbed
death,
the
and then
infected with the same switchblade that you cut the umbilical cord with.
yes. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like I can get behind that being the reason why Ellie's immune. And then they did the broke that shot down, and you see them filming, and then you see the camera behind them filming the filming.
Yeah.
You see the infected go down, and its face right at her thigh. And then the next shot you see is the infected laying next to Anna, and
Mhm.
she's still pregnant. There's no muck and baby Ellie and goop on the floor, but you've seen the face go down on the thigh, and then the next shot she's born. So she definitely got bit before she popped that kid out. And
Mhm.
damn, cordyceps works fast. If it, I mean, okay, having been a pregnant person before, right?
Mhm.
There's all this stuff they tell you cannot cross the placental barrier, right? And some of it
Mhm.
does very readily. But I can't think of too many things. I mean, heavy duty drugs at that hospital included that would pass that placental barrier that fast.
Right.
I mean,
I
that was
mean,
like almost instantaneous. Like she was bit and then bam, now she's, got those chemical messengers or whatever floating around in her body.
yeah. And not to mention the fact, like I said, her cutting the umbilical cord with the exact same knife. I'm like, yo, you ain't even gonna spit on it first?
Well, that's where I think I honestly I don't think and this is I'm overthinking it too much. Too much
Yeah,
science.
it's a TV show.
Too much
It's
science.
not meant.
I could see the umbilical cord thing being the reason why, because that's the lifeline, right? And
Right.
all of that blood is still there, and that's, again, I'm gonna put my mama hat on. There's a big movement now when women have babies not to cut the umbilical cord so quickly because it's still drawing nutrients and all the good stuff from the placenta in the beginning,
Right.
right? So I could see that because it's still drawing being the reason why.
And while the cordyceps
Right.
is just getting into the body, so it's
Yes.
like Ellie's young body is still getting the unadulterated, which is probably what did which did protect her. It would
Mhm.
make sense.
Sorry, there's too
And
much science in my zombie show.
no,
Sorry,
that's
y'all.
okay. That's okay. So then, Marlene shows up with the fireflies and, give her the switchblade and make sure she's raised up right. And we find out that Marlene has been Anna's friend since they were kids.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little bit right there to, this episode really sort of did a great job at tying up every single solitary loose end. Like
Yes.
there are no loose ends, in my opinion, in this season at this point. So
The fact that Anna in her last moments was that cognizant to say her name is Ellie. You need to protect her. You need to give her
Mhm.
this switchblade,
Yep.
and then you need to kill me.
Right. And I'll tell you what, man, because you figure it was daytime when she got bit. They got there, it was well into the night, so she didn't have that much time left.
No.
And I'm glad that they got there when they did, because can you imagine if Anna would have turned while she was holding that baby? But you
Well,
saw she had the switchblade to her neck.
her neck. But then I'm thinking, and we didn't know this, right? At because this is what opens the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we find out later on when we get to the hospital, and I know we're going to talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
why that may not have been true. She may not have gone after Ellie.
Hmm.
And that's remind me, I'm gonna stick a pin in that because that was I was thinking about this, last night when I'm walking in the woods at midnight. I was like, well, okay, but that doesn't track with something we learned. And this is probably the only nitpicky thing where I'm like, okay,
All
they
right.
set something up earlier in the series, and then the rules aren't quite the same when we get to the end.
All right. Well, we've
So
already
it involves tests. So just kind of,
okay.
if I don't remember, tell me to bring
All right.
tests back.
Well, you know what? Well, we might as well hit it right there at this point because the hospital scene kind of speaks for itself. Joel went beast mode, huh?
Could you kill your best friend if you had to?
If I
Like
had to,
Marlene's strength to be able to execute her best friend and
if
not
I
just leave her in that house.
if you got bit by a walker or an infected, I would take you out after saying our goodbyes because I don't want you to suffer. I would look at it as you're suffering. You're going to suffer. Like you are going to be physically feeling every last bit of death before you turn into something that you don't want to be. If you
Yep.
told me don't let me come back like that, I've already got my blade out to stab you in the skull. And I told Sharon the same thing. I said, look, if we're ever in a zombie apocalypse and you get bit, I'm going to
Yep.
tell you that I love you, and then I'm going to kill you. I'm going to put something through your skull.
Yep.
And if you told me that you couldn't do the same, I would be very disappointed because I don't want to be like that.
I'd like to say I could.
Yeah.
I really would. I'd like to say I could. And I think this is one of those I can say I can do that until the cows come home. And
But
then I'm
that don't
faced
mean you
with
can
it.
do it.
Can you actually do it? And I don't know that I could. I can say I could. I would like to think that I could because I wouldn't want to see you or anyone in my family suffer, right?
Right.
Or potentially hurt somebody else, right?
Right. Exactly.
But it's hard, man.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, it's a difficult thing to even have to think about. It's something that you never even want to have to think about. But maybe it's because, I have been ingrained in this subgenre of horror and science fiction for a lot of years now. I mean, my very first zombie film was Return of the Living Dead back in 1984. Okay. So I have been ingrained in, well, 85, I think. Yeah, 85. So I've been ingrained in zombie stuff for forever. And I've had plenty of time to think about it. I've plenty of time to think of strategies. I've had plenty of time to think of what I would do, what I wouldn't do, blah, 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 blah. And I'll tell you what, at this moment, sitting here, and I know a lot of folks will be like, well, you can't say you could do it unless you're in the situation. And you're absolutely right. Who knows? Maybe I would get to a point where I'd be like, I just can't do it. I thought I could and I can't. Here's an idea. Why don't I hold the gun and you put my finger on the trigger? So that way just use me as an extension. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
that's what we had to do.
Yeah.
But sitting here as in my conscious mind as me at this moment here and now, if you and I were together somewhere and you got bitten, I would give you the heartfelt goodbye. I'd make you close your eyes and then I'd take you out. That's just what my brain says that I know that I could do in this exact second
Yeah,
after
I
I
think it's that
destroyed
surge
the infected
instinct.
around you.
are you looking at a person, or are you looking at a monster, or are you looking at a meat sack with bones?
If you are still consciously you, I'm looking at you about to become a monster.
Yeah.
But you're also about to go through all the pain. Like I said, all the
Yeah.
death at once. It's so that's the way I would have to look at it. And I would seriously, and I'd be like Michael Ironside and Starship Troopers. I expect anybody to do the same for me.
So my
Cause
first zombie experience or show or whatever was The Walking Dead. And
okay,
I can count the number of shows I've watched that have to do with zombies on one hand.
right,
Now, apocalypse fiction, different story.
right,
But like the dead returning, or they're not zombies, they're infected, you
yeah,
know, and whatnot. I can count that on one hand. And everyone thinks they're a badass until they have to do it.
oh
And
yeah,
that's not just
oh
you, that's
absolutely.
everybody.
Yeah, we all think we're so tough until we are in the situation. I used to think I was a real good fighter until I ran into folks that actually knew how to fight, and I realized that I was scared shitless to get hit in the face. I did not like getting hit, and even when I did compete, I used to think going into it, I can crush people. I'm so strong. And then when it came time to put up hands and go, I would be scared until I got that first until I got hit the first time. Then I was like, my brain went to another place, because I think that, and that's sort of what separates the reptilian aspect of our brains from the mammalian aspect of
Yes.
our brains. You know what I mean? The mammalian has taken up so much within us that all the bluster that we get comes from the mammalian, not from the reptilian. It's hard to break through the mammalian to get to that reptilian and then go back again, which
Yes.
I think is part of the reason why anytime I've been in sort of any sort of situation of fighting or anything like that, I've always held back because it's almost like that feeling of not being able to come back. You know
Well,
what I
it's
mean?
the fight or flight
Yeah,
part.
exactly.
I mean, think about any time you've ever been in a fight or in something where that gets triggered, right? Your thinking brain stops and there's no getting through to it. None.
Nope.
You just got to kind of ride it out.
Yeah, and even when the combat in and of itself is done, you can't have nobody touch you.
No.
Like that. That's why in boxing or any sort of combat sport, when the referee is like waving their hands exaggerated and pushing the fighter away, that's why, to
Yep.
snap you back into your mammalian thinking. And in this season, we've seen Joel go to that reptilian side, and we saw it especially. And like I said, I knew it was coming because this was actually one of my favorite parts of the game, because at this point I was like, nah, you ain't killing my baby.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, and that's what Joel was thinking. So we find out while Joel and Ellie are having their moment and she's reading the puns and they're talking, and you see blurred in the background the fireflies. And
That flashbang.
that flashbang sucked. And it took Joel out more than her because he protected her. And I think a lot of it's too is because he's already starting to go deaf.
Well, yeah. But I appreciate how, like, usually, think about video games when you're playing a game, right? And a flashbang goes off, or even in other media. It goes off, it's a huge bright light, and then it's gone. This lasted longer than that. So as an audience, you felt like you got flashbanged too, because it
Yeah.
took a lot longer for them to come back and show us what happened.
Yeah. And then, of course, Joel gets smashed in all of the back of his head. Not
Yeah.
part of it. I mean, all of it. And I mean, he hit him, and I was like, damn, back of my head hurt now. Come
And
on,
there's,
man.
you're trying to jog that survival reptilian part. I wouldn't be hitting there because that's where it's coming from. Don't damage that.
Yeah. Yeah. What would have been better off is if you got if there's four of you, one of your guys holds Ellie, and the other guy holds her at gunpoint, don't move. And when Joel rolls over on his back, you got two guns in your face. Don't move. Who the
Yep.
hell are you? No, don't hit him in the back of his head, because now you just gonna activate that shit.
Yep.
And then, of course, he wakes up and Marlene is there. And she's like, how did you guys do it? I had 5 people who their job was to keep me safe, and I still almost died. How did you do it?
It was her, not
Yep.
me. And I was like, damn, that's a dad moment right
It
there.
really is.
That
It
was
really
me. That
was.
was my baby.
Yep. Absolutely. And then, of course, when she starts telling him about what they're going to do, and you just saw Joel, he goes, wait a minute.
I didn't
Cordyceps,
know.
yeah, it's like cordyceps starts in the brain. I know.
I was like, oh,
Now, now what's funny though is that now I don't remember them having Ellie and Marlene having some sort of attachment in the game. I don't recall because it's been a while. But you could see that Marlene was trying so hard to stay businesslike, but it was kind of tearing her up a little bit. You could tell, like this wasn't easy for her to come off with. It really wasn't.
well, it was the last thing she had of her best friend.
And she's got to break her friends. She got to break her promise she made to her best friend for
Yep.
the good of humanity.
Yep.
And of course, Joel, and then, Joel's starting to get hot. And then she's just like, I love how she goes, you're the last person whose debt I ever want to be in. And it's like, because, when this cat's coming to collect, he's coming for blood.
Yep.
But she goes, take him out to the highway, give him his pack, let him go. If he does anything, shoot him.
Shoot him.
Now, what I don't get is why did you only, you know what kind of a badass this dude is. You only sending 2 guys. Really? 2.
And then they keep shoving him. I don't understand. Like, I kept thinking that. I don't understand when they're like, let's walk. You just creamed this guy in the back of his head, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
flashbanged him and knocked him to the ground, right? He's probably got one hell of a concussion going on,
Yeah.
right? We got to walk. Okay. And then they keep shoving him. Let homie walk.
Yeah, just let my man walk. And it's just like, you know
He
what?
wasn't resisting. He was walking.
I was thinking in the back of my mind, Joel must be like, this motherfucker pushed me one more time.
Yes.
You
Bitch,
got
try
one
me.
more time. Bitch, touch me again.
That's right.
And I love it. I love how Joel, and remember I told you at the first episode, I told you, wait until the season finale. That's
Yep.
going to make that look like nothing. Now, credit to Pedro Pascal, because there are times where you see people just lose their shit in film and television or in life. And it's very feral and animalistic. This time, it was calculating. It was scary because he was never once not in control.
He went right back to holding Sarah and walking out of that truck.
Yeah. It's like he went right back to the most devastating moment of his existence.
And I couldn't save her then, but I'm sure as shit gonna save her now. Failure was not an option for him, like
No.
at any point.
This was like Ethan Hunt meets freaking Jason Bourne in one dude. Plus, with a little bit of the El Mariachi from Desperado. There was no failure.
I want to give huge props, and I know I've talked about this before, right? But you can have the best actors, you can have the best script, right? The hill I'm going to die on is if your composer and the person picking out both your music and your orchestrated pieces is crap, your experience is not going to be the same. And they did. So I played in an orchestra for years, and I remember, was it 2 episodes ago? I was gushing over the carousel and the music, right?
Yes, you were.
And how that made that scene. This is the same thing. If you play that scene back on mute, Joel is still a badass. Joel will not stop being a badass.
Mm-hmm.
But they went back and they brought in the cellos and the bass, which, again, from a music theory perspective, right? Think back to Star Wars Episode 1, right? You get the Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
The very beginning of that da 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 repeating theme, yes,
Yep.
that I played that in orchestra. That's not the violins that everyone thinks of. Like, name me an orchestra instrument, right? Everyone says violin. Everybody. That's not the
No, my
violin.
first thought is percussion.
Well, that's a philharmonic. I'm talking about a string
Okay.
instrument. Violin,
Oh,
viola, cello, bass.
yeah.
Everyone will tell you the violin because the violin always gets the melody. They always get
Yeah.
to carry the melody, right?
Right.
And we get the opening theme song is on a guitar. And they handed off the melody super slowed down and they gave it to the cellos and the basses, which have a lower timbre, they have a lower pitch, they speak more to shit's about to go down. And they
Yeah.
slowed the theme down way, way slow. So it took me a second. I'm like, oh shit, that's the opening theme. And they give it to the deeper, basser, more like spine vibrating instruments to carry that through that whole scene as he is methodically taking these dudes out.
And I'll tell you what, as a bass player, I really appreciate that because it's about time we got time to shine.
I played viola, so I never got like the cellos and the bass. The cellos would get the theme, the violins would get the theme, and there are all the violas being like, "We get to
So,
play in this sometime today, right?" So when we played Duel of the Fates, it was carried by the violas, the cellos, and the basses, and we're like, "Yes, it's our time. Our time has come." But yeah, that started, and I'm like, "Damn!" Like, hats off, and I have to look up his name, but hats off to the composer for The Last of Us because the music he has picked, or she,
that
because
would be Santeolala
and isn't it
and
the
David
same
Fleming.
people who did it for the
Oh,
game?
Gustavo Santaolalla. I'm terrible with I can't say his name very well. But hey, David Fleming too.
Hats off because I think a lot there's a lot of extra emotion in what's going on in the music.
Yep. And Gustavo Santaolalla is for those that don't know, I didn't. He's an Argentinian musician, composer, and producer. And he has done the score for The Last of Us, the game, part one
Yeah,
and
okay,
part
that's
two.
what he did the game too.
Yep. And for let me see.
He did Making a
He
Murderer.
he also for Jane the Virgin, Making a Murderer, and he won the Academy Award for Best Original Score for Brokeback Mountain and then Babel.
So
So
I'm gonna
homeboy got his stuff, man. He got
yeah,
his stuff.
all of the credit because I feel like as badass as Joel was in that moment, it would have felt different if the music was different. And it was just like that scene on the carousel, it was just perfection.
On now, let me ask you this.
Oh, David Fleming did Dune too. He helped.
Yes,
He did the
yes,
TV show, he did Dune, he did Blue Planet.
dude. All I know is that these guys, number one, just did an amazing job no matter what. No, but let me ask you this. Do you think this scene would have been less powerful or more powerful if there was no music?
Less.
Okay. I mean, I
Because
get because music sets the tone, but
it does. I think it
so-
drew it all together.
sometimes though, I think that no music, like actually, I want to watch that scene on mute. I mean, I wish there was a way that I could play it without the music and just like so I had the sound effects because there's something about just the sound of the world and it's happening.
Yes, yes.
It's very visceral, very feral, very just raw and emotional. Like the music was amazing, no matter what. But and I'm not even suggesting for a second that maybe the music took away from it. I don't. I'm just wondering. I'm just asking like a basic question.
Well,
Because
I think if it was different music, we would have a different like if it, I don't want to say a pop song, but if it was like a rock song or a class or whatever, I think it would have gotten you jazzed up in a different way. I mean, I talked about this with a friend of mine in something else. It's that concept of that hype playlist, right? Everyone's got their
yeah,
go-to that music that gets them hyped. And we have those songs we go to that when we're feeling like crap and what is it when you feel sad? You want to listen to more depressing music, right? But
Hmm.
you've got those going on. And I feel like to say, you know what, we're not gonna pick a song in popular culture to augment this. We're gonna go back and we're gonna use the theme and say, all right, this is how it's been from the beginning. And we're gonna use the show's theme to kind of bookend this.
Yeah.
And I think if it had been something else, yes, I think it would have taken away from the scene, honestly. But I feel like the choice they made in just slowing down the theme and using that was just brilliant.
I agree. I don't disagree with you at all. And I love how Joel's just going in and even people are begging for mercy. And Joel's just like, nope, you're dead. And you're
Yep.
dead. And you're
That one
dead.
guy, he shot him. He's laying there, and then headshotted him. I was like, that was just cold. He could have let that guy live, but he fucked with his kid, and that can't let
And
that
then,
happen.
yeah. And we find out later what he was thinking. But I definitely want to get to the doctor. No, I won't let you. Bam. Because he was going to let the doctor, it almost looked like he was going to let the doctor live, but the doctor opened his mouth. Because what's funny, and I think I saw this written somewhere, and they were talking about how the different perspectives at this moment are when you're a kid playing The Last of Us, because when you have to shoot the doctor as a kid, you're like, oh no.
Wait,
But
you have to
as a
shoot the doctor as Ellie?
no, when you're a kid playing The Last of Us and
Oh,
you're
okay.
in that
Sorry,
final
I haven't played
scene,
the game. I just want to make sure
yeah,
I understood.
as a kid, you're like, well, I don't want to shoot the doctor. He's
Doctor,
not a
here's
bad guy. Right. But as an adult, your mindset is you're going to hurt my baby. You're going to die. And all that doctor had to do was what he was told. And
you ever been on
that's
a
what it seemed like.
pediatric ward?
I have been on one. Yeah.
Okay, so like my Ellie had a number of surgeries when she was younger, right? But being on a pediatric ward, you're like, oh, it's bright colors, and we see that gorgeous mural he walks past with the elephant and the
Yep.
monkeys. And okay, so I don't know if this was intentional. I'm sure it was, but you got Ellie the elephant,
Yeah.
right? And I think doesn't isn't the she sees monkeys in the game, right?
I think she does. I believe she
And so
does. I don't fully remember.
you've got this imagery going on, and you're like, it's bright and it's going to be cheery because it's kids, right? Like adult surgical wards are cold, sterile, white walls,
Just,
you know, and it's all
yeah.
cheery, bright for kids, so they're not terrified, And I appreciate that Marlene said we didn't tell her what we were going to do; we just put her to sleep,
Yeah.
right?
That was that was prop. Now, my thing is this, though, and I really wonder if, well, I don't think Joel would have cared because he probably wouldn't have believed her. But if Marlene would have said, we told her what could happen, this is her choice, would Joel have still reacted the way he did?
Yeah, because
Or what?
he was thinking of Ellie, right? But
Hmm.
I think there's a part of him too, and as a parent, I'm sure you will kind of go along with this is you do things for your kid that they may not want you to do. And you don't
Yeah.
always do it for them. You do it for you. And I think
Yeah.
that was it. Even if he knew that this is what Ellie wanted, he was not ready to let her go. So he wasn't going to let her go.
Yeah. And I think that if they would have talked about this before, and if Ellie would have told him, it's okay, I want this, I think he still would have done it.
And I don't think she did. I mean, we have
I don't
that
think
touch.
she knew.
No, I don't think so. But we have that touching scene when they're on the roof right after the giraffes, and she goes, and Jill's like, "We don't have to do this."
Right.
And she goes, "No, we have to finish what we started, and afterwards we'll go back to Tommy or the sheep ranch." So I don't think
And
she,
I'll follow you
and
wherever
I'll
you
follow you
go.
anywhere. And so I think if it had been said to her, you know what, you can't follow him anywhere because we have to take it out of your brain. And I, as an adult watching this, did not put two and two together until Joel said cordyceps lives in your brain. And so I don't know necessarily that Ellie would have put that. She's smart, but I don't know that she would have put that together.
Yeah, she's still thinking it's her blood.
Yes.
She's still thinking it's her blood. It's not her blood.
Yep.
And I think it was really, really. I love how he just goes in, doctor. I won't let you. Bam.
Yep.
And
I'm not playing that game.
nope.
Hell
And the
no.
nurse and the nurses, he's just like unhook her now, cover her up, talking about her arm.
Yep.
And he just walks out, and then there's Marlene. And this is the part in the game that really got me too, because that scene, shot for shot. Well, they're having that conversation in the car, not walking. I don't think so. I don't remember. It's been a while. But there's actually a point where she says, and the game ends on that same note that this episode does, where she says, "Swear to me that you're telling me the truth." He's like, "I swear." And she's like, "Okay." Because she,
I was like, that's
and that's
it.
it, and that's it, and that's it. That's how the game ends. That is how the game ends too.
Damn,
and I was pissed. I was so pissed because I'm like, but I'll tell you what, Ellie knows he's lying.
Yeah.
Ellie has been watching him this whole time. We all have a tell. And she's not going to understand or care that, okay, you did this for me. It's going to be, you lied to me.
Yep.
That's what she's going to be mad about. Not that he chose her over humanity.
They
Not that
building this trust and then just.
Yeah, she can no longer trust him. And the fact of the matter is, this is yet another person that's abandoned her by lying.
I mean, we've all lied to our kids for their own well-being. I mean, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny.
All parents have lied to their children for their well-being, absolutely. But there comes a certain time and a certain age where that time has got to stop. And the problem is with us as parents is that it's hard for us to understand that line. Our kids have to draw that line. Yeah. We don't know how, because we still think we got to protect them. We got to shield them with everything we've got. And the kids are like, you know what? You ain't got to do that shit no more.
Yep.
Quit lying to me. That's why I told my son, I'm never going to lie to you. I will always tell you the truth from my perspective, and I will never lie to you.
But I think in Joel's head, he was protecting her still. Mm-hmm. And now not that he has Sarah back, because they have that wonderful chat, but I think you would have liked Sarah, and I think she would have liked you, and he's talking to her about, for the first time, about who Sarah is.
Yeah.
And I think in Joel just finally wanted to be happy.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
not tell her the truth, because he didn't want to lose that. Finally, after 20 years, finally somebody I love has not died a horrific death. And I was able finally to save somebody. Couldn't save Tess, couldn't save Sarah. I can save Ellie. And I did. And I'm not letting that go.
Right. And I think what was cool is Marlene. Dude, I got to give, Marlene.
Because she played Marlene in the game too.
Yeah, she was. Yep. Yes, she did. And I'll tell you what, it was really, really cool how he just shoots her. She goes, "You can let me go." He goes, "You'll just come after her." And that was it. That was it. And that was it.
Another way. And he was like,
Mm-hmm. And that's it, man. That was season 1 of The Last of Us. So we've been teasing this since it started. So for this episode, after Bartender Smiley, he's going to talk about what we do and how we do it. We're going to not only give our rating for this episode, but then we are going to give our rating for the season. All right. And because I really feel like, because there are some things now that we're at the end of it, and I'm probably going to end up rewatching it. But I'll tell you the truth. I do have some problems. Not a lot, but a few. But let's see what Bartender Smiley has to say. We go into our ratings.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So, what can I get you?
All right, Melinda, give me your so we're gonna do our episode rating first, and then we'll go into our season rating. So what's your episode rating?
This was a 0 shot episode for me, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I could not find anything that wasn't more speaking to like you said, some minor issues with the season, but this episode was fantastic. The visuals, the relationship build, and then destruction at the end, and the audio and the acting. It was just, I could not find anything I did not like about this. It was so lovely. Seeing Ellie give birth to Ellie, and we had this kind of like passing of the torch kind of thing, like, and it was really good. I can't find anything really to say. I needed emotional support shots, but as far as rating, nothing.
Yeah, I've got to give this episode for what it was a 0 rating. I'm glad that we finally got to tie up the loose ends. One thing with a season finale that you want is you want to tie up every single loose end that you started in the season. Now, if it's going to be an overarching arc, like a multi-season one, then all right, I get it. But I mean, for a series based off of a video game where I don't even think they knew if they were going to do a sequel to it, because it was all depending on what fans wanted and blah, blah, blah. It was a great ending. Great payoffs on the characterization. Awesome performances. The mood. The one thing about this series is that it is absolutely amazing just how the mood is set. The look, the tone, the feel, the orchestra. It's all amazing. This is easily a 0 shot episode for me as well. I have a feeling what you're going to say for the first season as a whole, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What is your season's rating?
1.5.
Okay. A 1.5 shot. Okay.
And mostly I think that's because I don't have the same qualms that a lot of the reviews do, right? There aren't enough clickers, there aren't enough infected, there's not enough. You don't need that. That's not what this story is about. The show,
Right.
anyway. It's a different medium. You have to tell it differently, but still be faithful to the adaptation, right?
Right.
I think my biggest issues came in some inconsistencies. And this is what I was saying earlier with Tess, right? Is we get that in episode 2 where Cordyceps recognizes Cordyceps and it ignores Tess and runs right past her.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes back. And we hear from, later on, is that we know that Ellie is immune from birth. We learned that in the last episode, right? But rewind back to episode 7, and the infected comes after her anyway. And it came after the clicker. And if there are these chemical messengers, right, that tells it can recognize Tess is infected, even though we can't see it on the outside, at no point do they leave Ellie alone. They still come after her. But why? If she's got the cordyceps in her brain and she's got these chemical messengers and she's immune, if they can recognize it in Tess and her infection is not the same, how come they don't recognize that in Ellie and they still go after her? She still gets bit. Sam comes after her. And how much of that, so that inconsistency, but I mean, that's very nitpicky. That didn't ruin the series for me.
Right.
Absolutely not. Did not ruin the season for me at all. But it's like, it was a little inconsistent. Like, is she immune? Yes. But if it recognizes itself and that's why she doesn't get infected, then why doesn't it recognize her like it did with Tess?
I think the only reason why, to answer your question on that point, and it's a good point, but I think it's because the cordyceps was overtaking Tess. It just hadn't gotten to her brain yet, but it was overtaking her. Where with Ellie, her body has built that resistance to it. So because her body's built that resistance, maybe just maybe she doesn't quite smell enough like them
That's possible.
to be ignored. It's kind of like in any of the zombie movies when they first get bit, the zombies are still coming after them.
Yeah.
They have to it has to be going on for a little bit for the zombies to finally get them. You know what I mean? I actually almost even brought up from Dusk Till Dawn. Well, they were still trying to kill Jacob before he finally turned, but that's vampires. Let's live in the reality for a second.
Yeah,
but
no,
but
I
I
can see that.
yeah,
Again, it's not something that I'm like, oh man, it gets caught up in its own bullshit, so don't watch it because it doesn't make any sense at the end, and they change the rules because this is our protagonist. Like, it's not any of that. It's just, again,
it
it's
kind of
this.
makes you roll kind of makes you roll an eye a second. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, like, and I have not listened to the official podcast. I've been listening to that after the episodes, and they may actually address that. I don't know, but
I haven't been listening
also,
to it at all. I
it's
might
really
have
good.
to.
It's
Okay.
Troy Baker, Neil Druckmann, and Craig Manson, and it's the three of them, and they talk about it and why they made the choices they did, and it's like the clip at the end, but longer.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll
Um,
have to give that a try.
the other thing I really adored about this was, y'all, representation matters.
It does. It
And I didn't
absolutely
know this. I
does.
learned this in the podcast afterwards, right? But they I think it was Neil Druckmann was watching Shoshana Stern from Supernatural, the deaf actress.
Yeah.
She has a show. And he was watching that and he got to know her. And that relationship was part of why they chose to make Sam deaf. And on
Oh,
top of that, he had her consult to make sure the script was accurate. So not
nice.
only did they have that lovely gentleman that kind of acted as the interpreter and taught the cast some signs, he had a actual deaf person look over the script to make sure it made sense before it went to any of the actual deaf actors. And they
Nice.
talked about how they cast Sam and the casting call, and eventually they only got like 30 people that auditioned for Sam. And then when they decided to make him deaf, they got 6 people and they had to put it out like worldwide. We are looking for this, and like 6 people audition and
I still feel so. I got hit hard in the feels when we saw Sam again. I got so upset
yeah,
because he's such a cute little guy.
yeah.
Like he reminds me a lot of Brian Jr. He really does. He reminds me a lot of him when he was at that age. So I'll tell you what, I give this series a 1-shot rating. I give the whole season a 1-shot. And the only reason why is because I really don't like the fact that they gave up on some of those cold opens. I really appreciated those cold opens. Like the first 2 episodes, we got those cold opens, and then we got the Bill and Frank cold open, and then it kind of felt like we went from previously on The Last of Us right into the theme. I didn't really like that. I kind of but I like how we went back to the cold open with this episode. I appreciate the cold opens. I love in stuff like this. I like the fact that they sort of showed the different aspects. Like we saw how it all first started going down from Joel and Tommy and Sarah's perspective.
Yes.
I like how we saw at the very in episode 2 how this all started out in Indonesia and why the plants. And I liked how, we saw how Bill got everything situated. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of like how these people started to get sick. What happened to those 13 that went missing? You know what I mean? I wanted to see more of those cold opens. Now, I understand that they're like, they've got the time constraints that they have to have, especially if this is going to be on HBO proper, not just on HBO Max. But I guess I really just would have liked to have a little bit more of that insight. Maybe even a cold open as to And it doesn't even have to be long. You remember when The Walking Dead would have like those little short webcast episodes
Yes.
of like different stuff going on, and it ended up leading into like what World Beyond or whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah, and we
Like,
got Tales from The Walking Dead, which were 6 mini stories.
yes, I would have liked to have a little something like that
Yeah,
in these.
I don't
Like,
disagree.
I would have really enjoyed that. But I
Yep.
mean, otherwise, this is a one-shot rating. This was so very well done. This is better than I could have hoped for.
It did what any TV should do. It made you want more.
Yeah. Usually I hate when I have to wait for shows. I don't like waiting. There are some shows like right now with the Winchesters. I forgot that it was coming about. So I said, I'm just gonna wait till it's streaming and I can binge it all at once.
That's what I did, and I watched episode 1, and I have some opinions.
All right. So with that being said, thanks everyone for joining us on this Last of Us episode, the final episode now that we do of The Last of Us until next year. If you like hearing what
My closing thought is,
yeah, please.
if you're any company that is considering making a video game adaptation, this is how you do it.
Yeah, now do Mass Effect next and do it just as well.
This is how you do it.
Yep, do it just as well. And as a matter of fact, from our conversation last week when you said Femshep, fine, get Christina Hendricks as Femshep.
Oh.
No?
No.
No, Christine. Who do you want as Femshep?
I want the voice actress from the game, Jennifer.
Oh, okay, Jennifer. Okay, Jennifer Hale.
Yes.
All right, if she wants to do
Jennifer
it, I guess.
Hale, and then throw Mark Muir in there as an Easter egg somewhere. Like I want Jennifer Hale.
I always make I can't remember. I think I just go with the default male shepherd. But I think I'm going to start playing through it again when I, really feel like I'm there, and I'm probably going to do a playthrough as Femshep and a playthrough as male shep.
I will also say I have played through it enough that I have done all of the romance options, and every time I've played it through since doing it just to get all of the dialogue, I will always do Femshep and Garrus. That is my OTP, and that's how it is.
So does Garrus have a regular penis or?
Okay, so you have to go on YouTube and watch the romancing options for Garrus and Femshep because it is so fantastic. The dialogue is great. It's awkward. It's amazing. But then you get this scene at the end of 3, and he says it'd be an awfully empty galaxy without you, and you get these funny, like in the DLC. Did you play any of the DLC?
I think I've played all of them.
Okay,
I think Mass Effect is the one game series that I've literally played everything for.
Okay, so the DLC on the Citadel when Shep is having the party.
Yeah.
So if you don't, I don't know if it works for Shep or if it's just Femshep, but if you don't have your romance locked in, you end up sleeping with oh shit, what's his name? Javik.
Joker. Oh.
Which is fantastic. Really? Yeah, because Femshep rolls over and she's like, we're never going to speak about this again. Like, but if you have a locked in romance with Garrus, the dialogue is fantastic. It's a good thing your boyfriend's Archangel. Here I gotta go save you again. Like, it is fantastic. And so when my husband plays, it's Tali. He always romances Tali. And
see, I romance Liara. I don't know what it is. I really like Liara. I don't know. No, because Tali, it's like, man, we can't even get down because if you get out of your suit, you're gonna get sick and die.
Well, I think she makes a comment. If you pick Tali, I want to say after they hook up, she makes a comment about how it's worth it to have to take all the medication now so she doesn't get sick. But go on YouTube, watch the romance dialogue for
that'll be my next thing.
It's hysterical.
All right. So I'll check that out. So there's no, as of right now recording, there is no tomato meter available yet. But on IMDb, episode 9 of The Last of Us has a 9.3 out of 10. So that's pretty on point right there. I
don't disagree with it.
And let's see, our ratings are currently to be determined as well, according to Wikipedia. So, with that being said, we're not done yet for this week. We will be going through The Mandalorian, aka it is still the Spring of Pascal.
The Baby Yoda show.
Yep, the Baby Yoda show. So it's going to be Melinda, myself, and Katie Salidas, and we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian, episode 3. Now, last week we did 2 episodes in one because that's just where we were. But this week, it's only 1 episode at a time, so you ain't got to worry about that.
And I'm going to watch it in advance this time.
There you go. All right, so with that being said, for Melinda, I'm Brian Tann. This has been Tann Talks. Thanks so much for joining us as we've talked The Last of Us. And hopefully we'll see you guys again on Wednesday. Take care.
Endure and survive.